I see like the new crop of fans. They're like, "Oh, you got fired." I'm like, "I didn't get fired. I was getting a sick push."
What's going on, wrestling fans? It is I, Steve, and welcome to 10 Count right here on Wrestling New Co. I'm wearing my brand new Christmas sweater I got from my mother, and on today we have a brand new interview for you. Gabby Tuft, how are you doing today?
Wonderful, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I just gotta say, thanks, Mom, for the great Christmas sweater.
Did a great job. What a good pick. I love it. I think red is so festive.
It's a nice one. You can carry the festivities into the January and the February. But there's so much
Yeah.
happening with you and in professional wrestling. And one of the things that popped up recently for me was you were visiting Goldust at an establishment, a wrestling school, and you stepped
Mm-hmm.
in the ring and you got a little
I did.
emotional. You felt the
I
ring
did.
calling back to you, it seems. Now, Royal Rumble season is upon us. And
It
what a
is. It's
great
right around the corner.
place for you to possibly make a return would be the Royal Rumble. So possibilities of you return to the ring and
Hmm.
involvement in the Royal Rumble. What say you?
Well, possibilities of me returning to the ring are absolutely endless. I did go by Dustin's and I did hop in the ring. I didn't bump, I didn't run the ropes. It was just a moment where I was there visiting him, saying hi, talking to him, and I said, "Hey, buddy, you think I stick a toe in the ring?" They were doing their weekly YouTube taping. And he
Oh,
goes, "Yeah, come on, let's go." And the second I stepped in that ring, like my heart center just opened and I felt all this nostalgia come back. And that was the moment when I was like, "Yep, I think I need to do something about this." So I did have heart surgery in 2019 at Stanford. I had an aortic aneurysm, so it's genetic. My mom had it done a year before me. And actually, on the 28th of this month, Stanford is reviewing all of my scans to determine what, if any, limitations I have in the ring. So once I hear back from them, then we'll know exactly what my capabilities are in the ring. I can tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm something's coming. I can't tell you what, but something's coming. And as far as the Rumble, wouldn't that be an amazing spot to just poke my head in?
it would be nice.
It would be nice. Well, since I can't really talk to that, if I can't tell you if there was an opportunity to come back at the Rumble, it'd be a hell of a spot there.
I think so too. And we all enjoy that countdown, the 10 to 9, and you know how to count down from
God,
10 to
yeah.
9, and
God,
everyone
yeah.
knows. I hope everyone knows how to count from 10 to 0
I know
here.
I'm backwards.
If you can't, that's okay. That's okay. We don't no judgment.
I don't hold it against anybody.
I don't, watch Sesame
I
Street.
don't
They'll, they'll
judge.
they'll help you. The only Sesame Street helps you count forward, not back. You got to think
Right?
about
Yeah, I didn't
things.
learn that from the count.
No,
He's only taught me how to go one way.
that's true. That is true. Now, with your wrestling in the past and now the present maybe coming back, where's the strangest place you've ever wrestled?
Oh, it was somewhere in was it Maybe it was Shreveport. I think it was Shreveport. Yeah. We got there, we were doing a house show and we came down the ramp and it was right after rain. And we realized there really wasn't much of a ramp. And on the way to the ring, we had these plywood boards covering like these big mud puddles in the middle of this arena wherever we were. And we had to walk onto these plywood boards, and all the producers are going, "Make sure you do not step in the mud and get that crap on the canvas to stay away." And you look, it was everywhere. I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me." I felt like I was in like a barn or like a rooster house, like kind of throwback to FCW days. We do all these like crappy little like bar shows and stuff. But it was a pretty big arena. I mean, that has to be like, honestly, like stepping over mud puddles on plywood boards to get the ring. That was hands down the weirdest place I've ever wrestled.
Yeah, that does sound pretty strange. I've heard some doozies asking that question recently, and I've never heard of mud filling the entranceway where we have to step on plywood boards to get in the ring. But oh my! Though with that, you mentioned FCW, and FCW, it's kind of like the beginning groundwork for your wrestling career. And
Right.
how did you even get involved with the WWE and FCW?
Oh, I was a body guy at the time. I was right place, right time. I knew the right people.
Yeah,
I knew Rick Bassman. He was
oh
the
yeah,
owner of UPW. And for anybody that doesn't know UPW, I mean, Rick found Sting, he found Ultimate Warrior, he found Cena. All those guys were his guys. But by the time I had gotten around to it, it was kind of like generally just surviving at the time. And I hadn't watched wrestling since I was a kid. Rick and I were friends because we were networking in the same business. He had a gym that was like a block away from our personal training center in Southern California. So we became friends that way. Like, hey, let's network instead of try to put each other out of business. Little do I know, I'm hanging out with all these big, tall guys like Sylvester Turkey and Tom Howard and like all these dudes. I got no idea they're wrestlers. And so we're all like buddies. One day, Rick calls me up. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing right now?" I'm just sitting around the house. And he goes, "Why don't you come up to the gym?" I go, why? I know he's got something cooking when he's talking like that. And he goes, "Well, I've got some talent scouts here from WWE." He goes, "I know you don't watch wrestling, but why don't you just come on up and have a look? The worst thing that happen is that they don't like the way you look and nothing happens." He goes, "The best thing that happens, you walk away with a contract." I'm like, "Really?" So I walked up there in like a tank top and jeans, and I opened the door. There's like 30 or 40 dudes in their boots and underwear bumping around in there and like full gimmick. And I look around, I'm like, what the hell did I just walk into? So Bucci comes and grabs me, Mike Bucci and Bassman. They pull me and these two other guys into the back office. And they go, "Look, we know you know anything about wrestling. Like, it's cool, but you got to look and you're marketable. So why don't you come back tomorrow? We'll see if you got two left feet." So I did. I didn't have two left feet, thank God. They sent me for a tryout in Deep South, and they said train with Rick for about long as you can. About a year later, I walk into the Staples Center with Rick, just going to say hi to people, and Johnny Laurinaitis is like, "Hey kid." Funny, my voice kind of resembles him right now. It's like it's so hoarse. It's just like ever since my vocal surgery, it's been so shot. But he's like, "Hey kid, why don't you come into the back office with me?" I'm like, "Okay." Like, get back there and he just slides this book across the table. It's like this thick. And he goes, "You ready to go to Florida?" I'm like, "For what?" And he goes, "Because you got a contract right there that you need to sign." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And that was it. Right place, right time. And the rest is history.
Wow. So, it's funny because Jordan Laurinaitis, there's two coins, two sides of that coin. You're either a John Laurinaitis person or you are not.
Nope,
And
you are.
if you're not, that's a tough time. But obviously you were. So
Yeah.
offer your
Johnny was always cool to me. Like,
yes.
honestly, when my daughter was about to be born, I was in Europe on the SmackDown tour, like, on the due date, and I'm freaking out, freaking out, freaking out. And Johnny's like, "Get through this one thing, we'll send you home." I'm like, "Okay." So I did. Like, I finished. I think I didn't finish the whole tour, but I was freaking out. I'm like, "I gotta go home." He's like, "Go, go, go." And not only did he send me home, he's like, after Mia was born, he's like, "Take 2 weeks off." Well, what? I said, "Nobody gets that." He's like, "Take 2 weeks off." And so he gave me 2 weeks off to be with my wife and my new daughter. So it was pretty cool to me.
Right. Again, I hear wonderful, very heartfelt stories from individuals, but then I hear the horror of other stories. So
I've
you're always like,
I've seen both sides.
oh, okay. So you
I've
have
been on the
experienced both
receiving
sides.
end of the bad side too. I've been on the receiving end. Like, I've seen both sides of Johnny.
Okay.
And when there's a whole airplane incident in Wisconsin, he was not nice to me.
Yeah, I imagine because again, a lot of things happen and a lot of things change. But with FCW though, you come in and then NXT eventually as a thing. And how are you feeling because FCW facilities are not compared to NXT facilities? I would compare it to like Disney World and Chuck E. Cheese.
No, no, honey, we were there when FCW was being built. And we would literally, there was like roll-up doors in the back. Remember, it's just a big warehouse. We had
Yeah.
3 rings in the back, 1 ring in the TV taping area that wasn't even up yet. When I was there, there were no bathrooms. There was no running water. Like, we just roll up the doors and we just pee off the freaking like back roll-up door until the neighbors complain. A bunch of dudes, a bunch of roster guys are just unzipping and peeing out the freaking out the doors. So no, the facilities were nowhere near what NXT has now, but in the world of wrestling at that time, that was the best developmental facility anybody had ever seen. So
Yeah,
we felt pretty special at the time. There's no sauna, no weights, but we're like, yeah, you know what though? We got 3 rings. We're like, hey.
that's true. Good point.
Well, we got air conditioning eventually. Eventually, we got air conditioning. First year.
Not in the beginning.
The first summer I was there, so imagine Tampa, Florida in the heat of summer with all that humidity and no air conditioning in a warehouse with 3 rings. We did man in the middle one time. We had to call practice because every time somebody do a baseball slide, the amount of sweat on the mats was splashing upwards into people's eye. Like, I mean, it was like you were water skiing. It was insane.
Wow.
It was gross. Yeah.
Yuck. So,
Yeah. I mean,
so
yuck's
I'm,
the
I'm very
word.
happy NXT was created. So air conditioning
Oh,
could be
yeah.
in a
Those
building.
greenhorns don't know what they got.
Wow, it's tough down here. The air, oh, it's so chilly in here. Can someone turn up the air conditioning? It's cold in here.
Please. Oh my God.
That's
I've spoken like a
hilarious.
grizzled vet, right? They don't know
That
what they have, these
that is
kids.
so funny. But when you get to the main roster, though, you are put in some prominent roles at WrestleMania. You're in a battle royal as well. And again, what's that day like? Because obviously you
WrestleMania.
weren't a wrestling fan. You said growing up, and then here you are. You're thrust in this world. Do you understand at the time like what WrestleMania means to a lot of wrestlers and fans around the world? Because it's like
Yeah.
the Super Bowl of wrestling.
Right. Yeah, no. I had gotten it, but so just to clarify, I was a huge fan growing up as a
Huge.
kid until I was like, preteen.
Right.
So growing up, I grew up in like Macho Man, Hogan, Brutus the Barber. I was begging my dad to call the hotline every Saturday, and he's like, "That's not gonna happen." But I got out of it because I just hit that stage where I'm like, "Oh, it's not cool." And when I got back into it, the first thing I learned about wrestling is that you don't talk about not knowing anything about wrestling. Instead, you go become a student of the game, which I did. So very quickly, I smartened up. I learned my history very quickly. So yes, when I was at WrestleMania, I knew exactly what it was and exactly what I was there for. Uh, yes, happy to be at WrestleMania. I wouldn't call the Battle Royal pre-show very prominent, but I was
Permanent
there.
roles getting to WrestleMania, but you were in a battle royal.
Yeah, and I was there having a good time, Kane and Goldust and I dishing out nut shots to certain people, just having fun. 83,000 people in Arizona, and we're just having a good time laughing
Hey,
and
doesn't sound like a bad time. But yeah, but you're right. The character you're portraying on television at points it had stop and start. For at least me as a viewer watching it, noticing, being like, why is this person so powerful? And the next week they're not. Like, why did you feel like that was the case for your character?
well, everything in hindsight is 2020, as we say. And so in the beginning, I blamed everybody. And that's just you think about it, it's like, well, it's creative's fault. They didn't have anything for me. Or they didn't tell me who this character is supposed to be. They made this character for me. They didn't tell me what to do with it. They just said, "Shut up, don't say anything. We want you to be ominous." Well, okay, that's cool. But then when it didn't work, they instead of telling me, "Hey, we need this character to evolve," they just took me off TV. I'm all, well, that sucked because I was really going places. And at the time, I was kind of bitter about it. But to be honest, I didn't know who I was at the time. I didn't know my value. And I remember very specifically when that character had started after bragging rights. We had done bragging rights already, and I remember we were at Raw, and we had oh no, it was before bragging rights. It was right before bragging rights, and we were at Raw, and it was leading up to it where we had SmackDown versus Raw, and we had the entire roster on both SmackDown and Raw on the floor during a commercial break, and suddenly they start passing the microphone around, and I'm like, what the hell was this? I wasn't told about this. I don't have a promo ready. I don't even know my character. And I remember sitting there that whole time going, God, please don't hand the microphone to me. I don't know what to say. And I think back on it. Nobody handed me the microphone, thank God. But I think back on it and I go, well, I know who the heck I am right now. There's no question about it. I know my value. If you hand me a microphone now, oh, I can talk for an hour. But back then, I just didn't take the ball and roll with it. And if I always look at it like this, in life, we are in full control of every situation. We can always dictate the outcome to go our direction. And I just didn't have enough experience. And I was not confident enough in myself. I could have taken that ball and I could have rolled with it at any moment. Instead, I was waiting for a creative to do something with me. So looking back, I'm like, I could have done better. End of story.
So Brian Myers, Kurt Hawkins
Hawkins.
at the time.
Yep.
So where was that pairing put together? Were you guys friends?
We were friends. Yeah, just there was a group of us that used to hang out in the stands. And it was like me, Hawkins, Tyson Kidd, Kurt Hussey, who's Fandango. I mean, we just get a group of guys up there that would just have a good time and hang out. And Hawkins and I got demoted to NXT about the same time. Hawkins was, on the verge of being fired, so he came down to FCW, and that's where I got to know him. And so when we were back on the road and I got taken off TV, I think he came to me one day. He's like, "Hey, look, we're both down here. If we don't do something, we're gonna get fired. You want to tag?" I go, "Yeah, okay. I'll tag with a former edgehead who is one of the absolute best creative minds in the business. Sure, no problem." And so he just kind of like led the tag team with all the ideas. I take zero credit for anything. Hawkins is a creative genius when it comes to putting matches together, when it comes to pitching creative ideas. And I just rolled with it and I learned the whole time. And so he came to me, he put the tag together. I'm like, yes, please. And it was a great time. I had a great time working with
Yeah, so you get, I believe at one point you're ripping down signs in the audience together, and then John Cena gets
him. Yep.
involved as well. Like
Yep.
that again, obviously you're not in the main role, but you're also prominently
Yeah.
positioned sometimes when in storylines that matter versus someone just being thrust into a go lose match. Because there was
Right.
those times where you and Myers were everywhere. It seemed like every time I put on
Yeah.
TV, you were involved, and so like
So
TV
close.
time is TV time, I guess, versus not being on TV.
Right, right. It was fickle though, and it's exactly what you said it was. It was just all over the place. There was no home for us.
Yeah.
And I believe a lot of that was because Hunter had just kind of stepped in as the head of the creative department and he was taken over. It was talent development. I don't know if they still have like the talent development department, so to
Mhm.
speak, but Hunter had just taken that over. It was his baby. And you could see like where creative had tried to kind of interject us here and there. And they're like, we got to do something with these guys. We don't know what to do. So they just kept giving us little tidbits here and there, but it never led to anything.
Yeah.
And when you look back on it, yeah, it was a cluster, you know what? But the moment I decided to throw in the towel was the moment that Hunter had taken over and gotten behind Hawkins and I. So he had pitched the whole stripper gimmick thing to us where Magic Mike had just come out. Remember
Yeah.
Magic Mike? But like Channing Tatum and like Nash was in it. So Hunter and Nash are buddies. It was like this big thing. And so he just pitches the stripper gimmick to us. And Hawkins and I are like, okay, yeah. And he said, look, it doesn't matter how you get over. Once you're over, then we can bend and mold the characters from there. But let's just get you guys over first. Okay, cool. Talk to Vince about it, and like Kev, like everybody loved it. Vince was just loving it. And it was after that second time, I just was like, I gotta go. I can't be here anymore. Like my daughter was 8 months old. She knew I was leaving. I was gone 6 days a week. I'm like, I cannot be a FaceTime parent. This is not for me. So that's when I was like, hey buddy, I love you. Thank you for the ride, but today's my last day. And that was it.
So the reason you left the WWE was to be home with your family.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's so funny. It was so long ago, 11 years ago, something like that, 2012 when I left. And I see like the new crop of fans. They're like, "Oh, you got fired." I'm like, "I didn't get fired. I was getting a sick push." I was like, we were just in talks with Vince and Hunter. Like, I know where we were going. I didn't get fired. I quit on purpose. I walked into Raw at Fresno after SummerSlam because Priscilla, my wife at the time, had brought our new daughter Mia, and it was supposed to be like a little bit of family time, but I couldn't even help with the newborn. I couldn't help with Mia at all because I was so busy. And I ended up, my parents were driving through from Southern California visiting my brother. They were driving back up in NorCal. And I said, maybe you should hop in with my folks and head home. And she said, it's probably a good idea. And I watched them drive away, put her in the car with my folks to drive like 8 hours back to NorCal. And I just watched as they drove away. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, that's my kid driving away, and I don't even have time to help her. And so I called my wife that night. I said, I think I'm done. She's like, okay, I support you 100%. I said, I'm done. I need to come be with you guys. So I walked into Raw, I told Jane Geddes I was done, and Hunter's like, no problem. Like, I get it. I got kids. So that was it. I'm like, I quit. And the best part about it, though, Steve, is the next day when I got home, my kiddo took her first steps, and I got to be there for it. So it just reinforced that I did the right thing.
Wow.
Yeah, right? Talk
Like,
about like
yeah,
perfect.
fate. Talk about it was all meant to be type of situation there.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So at the time, though, your schedule, what were you
Mhm.
working, say, a normal week, not European tours, like, are you working 6 days straight? What is your schedule, say, Sunday to Sunday?
Yeah. So if we were doing house shows and Hawkins and I were starting to do those again, I would leave on a red eye Thursday night out of San
Okay.
Francisco because there's only a couple of us on the West Coast, or there were at the time. It was like Ray, Masters, and myself, and Jomo. But I think Jomo had gone by then. But like we were the only ones on the West Coast. So I'd leave on a red eye out of San Francisco, and I was an hour and a half from SFO Airport. So I'm north of the Golden Gate, like 40 minutes. And to top it off, I would just take like one of the little airport express buses. So it's like a 2+ hour ride on a bus to the airport. So I had to leave super early, catch the red eye. The next morning, Masters and I would meet up. We'd grab a hotel room together. We would crash on a Friday morning. We'd just go sleep. And then we go to the house show Friday night, drive 300 miles when the house show's over to the next city on Saturday night. Sunday night, same thing. And then without fail, they want Raw so far apart from the house shows that they can pack the house no matter what. It's like a 300-mile drive usually after your show on Sunday night. So we drive 300 miles. Monday night, we tape Raw if we were lucky to be on. And then Tuesday was SmackDown. So we'd have to drive another 300 miles to SmackDown. Wednesday morning, we'd be on the early flight home, hopefully. I would walk in the door to my house back in Northern California, Sonoma County, about 3:30 in the afternoon. So I would be so tired. I'd say hi to Priscilla and Mia really quick. I'd nap. I'd wake up. It was time to put Mia to bed. I'd give her a kiss goodnight, put her to bed, spend a couple minutes with Priscilla, crash. And I'm so tired. And the next day I fly out at midnight or fly out on the red eye. On the red eye. I can talk. I swear, God. Next day I would fly out on the red eye. So I'm home for maybe 24 hours and at the most if I was doing house shows.
Wow.
How do you be a parent? You can't.
No, no, I have three children, and I can't imagine that being part of a regular schedule. I guess providing for your
Mhm.
family in such a high capacity and
Imagine now,
unfortunately
take that
requires
and
sacrifice.
imagine the sacrifice, like the guys that have been doing this for 20 plus years, and even the top guys. Think about the sacrifices they're making, and it kind of puts things into perspective, like how awesome it is that the time they have with their kids, they all cherish. I know a lot of the guys personally, and they
Oh yeah.
they when they're home, they are home.
And they change their schedules too. No longer is it the 6 day thing you're describing, this awful, awful red eyes
Yes,
and arriving on Wednesdays at 3:30, then taking a nap and getting up, putting your kids to
correct.
sleep, going back to,
Yeah.
they work like Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and
Yeah.
then you have Tuesday,
Well, not
Wednesday,
and
Thursday
even
off.
now, I was just backstage at AEW this week, and I was talking to everybody. But what I figured out is there's no more house shows. Everything's TV based. I didn't realize that.
AEW is like that. AEW only has show programming
Oh,
that tapes on Wednesdays, tapes on Saturday nights, but they have a show that airs Friday nights that was already taped on Wednesday. So
got it.
they were trying house shows. They were trying house shows, and I guess it wasn't cost effective to keep doing it as much as the WWE does.
That's what it
So
is.
that's
Okay, got it.
like Impact Wrestling doesn't do house shows either. They do every 2 weeks they do a taping on a Friday and Saturday night. That's like 4 weeks of tapings for the pay-per-views
Just
that
put it
leads you
all
in.
on the can.
Yeah, put it all on the
Okay.
can. The WWE obviously doesn't want you to know what's going to happen on Monday or Friday, so they don't tape them unless the holiday
Yeah.
special. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so
Yeah, we got this cool thing called the internet now.
yeah, each thing changes as time goes on, but again, there's so much in wrestling, and I think with you possibly coming forth and being involved in today's world, I think honestly everything that's going on in your life and what's going on in today's world would mesh perfectly together now.
Yeah,
How-
I
Like
feel
how
like it
how
would
did you
too.
feel a few years ago when everything was happening in your life that was changing? Did you feel that there was wrestling fans coming forward to support? What did you feel? Because
Oh
obviously
yeah.
wrestling fans can be nice and mean.
Well, I got both. For the most part, and the fans for the most part, yes, they were very supportive,
Yeah.
but wrestling going back to the ring, not even a blink of my eye. As far as I was concerned, I was never wrestling again. Even when I started my transition, I'm like, nope, I've got no desire. I don't want to go back. That chapter is closed. I was just focused on trying to figure out my own life at the time, and the fans were great. But of course, it's like 90% positive, but you do have that 10% that's just like, hey, you suck, and I hate you. And they're very vocal about it, but you get that with that's social media.
That's with
When you
anything.
put your life out there, you're gonna expect that. However, the actual workers, the wrestlers, incredibly
Yeah.
supportive. Absolutely incredibly supportive. Even this week at AEW, I was backstage and talking to everybody from just Christian, Jericho, Claudio, Mel, Cervantes. It just Brian Cage, Lance Hoyt, like I haven't seen my boys in 11 years. I purposely did not. I set it up to go backstage a couple times when AEW was around, and I just wasn't ready to be seen yet. I just wasn't comfortable
Hmm.
with me. And so them not seeing me for 11 years, it was like nothing changed. Not a blink of an eye. They were just so welcome. It was like hugs all around. Hey, so good to see you again. Like, tell me about like what's going on, and just like nothing changed. So incredibly supportive. And when I came out WWE, people were the same way as everybody at AEW. Just total support from start to finish.
Outstanding. So what is next on your horizons? What do you got going on? What is the next step? What's 2024 going to be like?
Well, 2024 is big. I've got a lot of stuff in the books. I actually started a podcast we're recording. It's called the Glow Podcast, GLO, Guided Lifestyle Optimization. I've got a banger of a guest list lined up. We've got people starting in January on the podcast. So we're going to film all of season one in January, probably Q1. We'll go live. I'm a keynote speaker at the largest gender diversity conference in the nation in March. It's the Keystone Conference. I will be speaking in front of 1,000 people. And then I've got my coaching business. So I do online personal fitness and nutrition coaching. We are growing like crazy. I've got PhDs, master's degrees on my team. I've got coaches underneath me that coach NFL players. So I work with 99% females. And we basically cater to whatever need is at the forefront. So if you want to gain weight, we help you. If you want to lose weight, we help you do that as well.
Wow. From being afraid to touch that microphone to now giving life
100%.
advice and coaching. So much is happening in the world. Again, thank you so much for being here and sharing
Yeah.
your story. The past, the present, the future is bright. I've been Steve Fall. She's Gabbi Tuft. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.